Securities offered through Kestra Investment Services, LLC, Kestra IS, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advisory services offered through Kestra Advisory Services, LLC, Kestra AS, an affiliate of Kestra IS. Capital Advisory Group, Inc. is not affiliated with Kestra IS or Kestra AS. Neither Kestra IS nor Kestra AS provide legal or tax advice and are not certified public accounting firms.
You work hard for your money. For the next hour, you're going to learn how to keep what's yours. Capital Advisory Group presents Keep What's Yours. Here is Josh Gilbert and Jeff Sufal.
Hello and welcome to Keep What's Yours with Jeff Zufall. I'm Josh Gilbert, sitting here with Jeff Zufall, Senior Tax Strategist and Wealth Advisor with Capital Advisory Group. Hello, Jeff.
Hi, happy Saturday.
Happy Saturday indeed. It's the heat's breaking.
Yes.
Okay, we can go outside without
you gotta run.
Protective.
Run
Right. Those spacesuits, they protect against heat and cold.
Yes.
We need to walk around in one of those things.
The bubble.
It's
the bubble
getting
boy.
Right. It's getting better. But we are, we just hit the longest day of the year. So
That's right.
It's all downhill from here.
That's right.
It's going to start getting darker and darker.
No.
Still got plenty of light out there. And,
Oh, yeah.
I got an 18-month-old at home, Jeff. He goes to bed at 7 o'clock. It is...
Got to close the curtains, yeah.
I mean, we got to, staple them shut because the light is just pouring in. But, who can't complain about late summer nights.
It's nice.
So we are here talking about summer and, beautiful Saturday, beautiful weekend. What does everybody want to talk about on a beautiful Saturday afternoon? Taxes.
Taxes, yay.
Taxes, exactly. But here's the point. You pay them, I pay them.
Yep.
Jeff pays them.
Yep.
Jeff pays them for me.
No.
Well, he does my taxes and
I
tells
do your
me
taxes. I tell you how much.
How much I owe. But the idea, if you're sitting at home saying, "Oh, taxes," well, let me ask you this: do you do your own taxes? And hopefully, the answer is no. Hopefully, you say,
"Oh yeah."
Yeah. Oh, no, I say I send all my stuff to Jeff Zufall. But if you do your taxes on your own and you wonder, why am I paying so much every year? We had somebody here in the office that approached me, cornered me in the break room. Hey, what's that tax guy's name? They came back, the IRS came back, and they were asking for more money. And it's like, well, you got to talk to Jeff.
Yes.
Because, I've picked up a thing or two here in a year of doing Keep What's Yours. The idea is to keep more money on your paycheck and less money going to the federal government in the form of taxes.
Yes.
That's what Keep What's Yours means. But the idea is, I told the guy, I said, look, your withholdings on your,
are not correct.
Are probably not correct.
Review it. Make sure that it's done correctly for the year, that you have the correct holdings.
What's that form called when you first?
It's a W-4 is what's filled out. Yeah, and there's one for the IRS or the federal side, and there's one for the state of Missouri.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, I've been putting zeros and ones in there for as long as I can remember. I was asking my dad how to fill this thing out.
It's changed a little bit now, so anybody that stumbles into this will be kind of stunned by looking at it because they simplified it. It's not 100% accurate, though.
Yeah.
So
well, in retrospect, looking back, I asked my dad for, what should I fill out here? And he went, put a 1 there and a 0 there. He's a school teacher, smart guy, but he taught social studies.
Yeah.
He probably taught, some sort of civil law or, it's a civics class.
Yeah.
There might have been a mention of tax in there, but he doesn't know what he's talking about. Yeah. So
just sign it right there, too.
Yeah. So the idea that, for the longest time, my parents did my taxes for me. Then I had my sister do it. And, Jeff, when I got married and my wife had student loans and, we had a kid, my sister threw up her hands and she goes, it's too complicated for me to just do this for you anymore. You got to go find a tax person.
Yep.
And luckily, I stumbled upon Jeff Zufall, Senior Tax Strategist and Wealth Advisor with Capital Advisory Group. If you need somebody to do your taxes, if you're listening to our voices right now and you say, you know what, I keep paying more and more every year.
More of your fair share, exactly.
And what is that, we got spots running where you talk about, did you look at your taxes and make adjustments or did you write a big check?
Exactly.
If you just keep writing big checks every year,
it's not going to help you.
No, there's something that we can do about it. Go see Jeff, 636-394-5524. Find out what you're doing wrong when it comes to taxes, and then find out while you're in there where the wealth advisor portion of the office comes in. how can I make sure, number one, that I'm paying my fair share and not a penny more?
Yeah.
And with the money that I kept, keep
That's
what's
right.
yours.
All the money that you save.
All the money that I kept, what can I do with it?
Yeah.
To make sure that when it comes down to it, when I retire, Jeff, I'm not going to say, Jeff, I want to make sure that when I retire, I've got enough for this, that. I'm looking at the boat. Okay? There's a line item on my, 30-year plan.
Yeah.
When can I get that boat?
The boat, that's right.
And you'll let me know. And
you can have it next week, but your wife says it'll be 10 years.
Yeah, I think she actually, tell her when we can get the boat, and then she'll let me know.
Yeah.
Some of the ideas that we talk about here is personal finance.
Yeah.
And every once in a while, you have to sit down and look.
And review it, yes.
Look at what you're doing.
Yes.
What's going out, what's coming in, what's in your portfolio, what can I be doing? A conversation about taxes, a conversation about our portfolio is not something that we do once a year in April.
You should not, because that's recording history. It's too late typically to do anything about it. So the concept is look at it at least once a year, mid-year, maybe even a couple of times a year, just to review what's going on, look at your beneficiaries, look at, what you're putting in your 401k. Why are you putting it in your 401k? Where are you putting it in your 401k?
Yeah. What's that money going to be used for?
And while you're doing that, every year, most people don't change their contributions to their 401ks for years. So what you'd be looking to do is if you're doing 4%, do 5%. Increase it by 1%. Leave it alone for a year. Come back, increase it by another percent.
I'll tell you, I was a little skittish when I first started saving for retirement. I was doing 6%.
Yeah.
And then I talked to somebody, and they said, why don't you just bump it up to 10%? You'll never miss it.
Yeah.
You'll never miss it.
Which is true.
It goes out of my paycheck before I even see it. It's a responsible way of doing it. Then I go and see you. Jeff, you do our taxes for us. We talk about a couple things. The very next morning, I jumped on to the computer and I bumped it up to 12%.
Exactly.
Because I'll never miss it.
You'll never miss it. Next year we'll hit you up and we'll say, hey, take it to 13, 14. And you just don't try and do it all at one time. Most people go, I'll do the max.
It'll be a shock to the system.
It's a shock to the system and your budget. And typically it doesn't last that long. You'll revert back to doing nothing or a low percentage. Just each year, just increase it by 1 or 2% as you go forward.
And the last thing I would want to do is to put a bunch of money in my retirement coming straight out of my paycheck and then find myself charging things on a credit card.
Exactly.
Because I can't get through the month.
Yeah.
Especially with inflation and all that stuff.
Yeah.
The percentage on my credit card is probably negating,
exactly.
I'm paying Paul to just rob Peter.
Exactly.
Or get robbed on the back end by the credit card companies. So you always said pay yourself first.
Yes.
Pay yourself first. And then from there, we can look and see what's left over.
Exactly.
How much do I need for the rest of the month? How much do I need for the next 2 weeks? Because I get paid, every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And now that I know what all those numbers mean on there.
All that googly gosh stuff on the bottom of your paycheck stub.
Now that I know what all that means, I look at it every time I get paid.
Yeah.
I'm keeping tabs on myself.
Yeah. Spot check it and go from there. And just think every dollar that you save in taxes today can be spent or saved in the future. So.
And I love knowing that there's compound interest in the world.
That's a cool thing.
That's a very cool thing.
Ben Franklin was a very smart individual.
I got to tell you, it gives me a little tingle in my leg when I hear compound interest. Back in the day when I was 20 in college,
you're like, what?
There's other things that really got me going. Okay, but nowadays it's compound interest.
There you go.
That's what gets me jazzed up in the morning. What should we be doing right now? You say half the year is through. Well, we're halfway down.
Yeah.
What are we doing? Should I be looking at my portfolio?
Yes, that is something to, especially with the craziness of the market over the last 6-7 months. Now's the time to stop. Look at your portfolio. Look at your 401ks. Look at your individual brokerage accounts, your IRAs, stuff like that. What you're looking for is sell the duds, basically. There's companies, and I'm going to name a company Netflix was a high flyer, greatest company on the face of the earth
really
for the
went
last
down.
6 or 7 years, and just literally imploded.
Yeah, we talked about that. You know, they admitted for the first time
They had real competition.
that Amazon and Apple were competition, and that, I guess, just saying that
blew them up in an afternoon.
got investors scared, and they all jumped
started to run away. So let's say that you own Netflix and you own it in your IRA. The question is, most people, we hear all the time, like, oh, I'm going to wait until it comes back up to at least where I bought it. The mathematics on it don't work typically. I'm not saying this is, go sell your Netflix and your Amazon and all that stuff. I'm just saying as an example. The key is, if it's a loser, sell it. Don't wait around.
And selling a stock that you've lost money on,
you get to take a capital loss. So as long as it's long-term or short-term. Long-term is if you've owned it more than 12 months in a day. Short-term is anything under that. But still, if it's in loss mode, where you bought it for 200, it's trading at 187 or so. The difference between that is a loss, and you get to take up to $3,000 directly off your ordinary income tax return, or any capital loss offsets a capital gain at a later date. And we'll get back to that in a second, explain something that's going to happen to a lot of people, and they don't even see it coming yet. But the theory is, go through your portfolio, sell the duds. Don't be emotionally attached to any stock. We get people that say, oh, my father worked at Boeing for all these years, so I still keep his Boeing stock. Well, mathematically, no, it's not working for you right now. But just because your dad worked there doesn't mean you should keep that stock forever and ever.
Right.
There's mathematics involved in it.
Well, being emotional, that permeates everything that we do, whether it's, me at the casino and I'm putting on, at the roulette table, putting it on my birthday or something.
Exactly.
Or, when you do sports gambling, you're like, oh, I love the Cardinals, but they're playing the Dodgers. Yeah. It's like, you're betting with your heart, not your head.
Yeah, not your head, and not using mathematics.
And
to your
investing in your portfolio is the exact same way.
Yeah. So sell any duds sitting out there. Go through your portfolio. We can help you do it. It's basically your loss trading is what you're really doing. And you could sell some winners too sometimes. But again, in a taxable brokerage account, if you sold winners and losers, the two offset each other. So if you have a capital gain sitting out there, and then you have a loser that's capital loss, the two will subtract from one another.
Okay. So I got $10,000 capital gains, but I sell a loser $5,000, take a capital loss.
Exactly.
I'm only paying taxes
on $5,000.
On $5,000
exactly.
Because they took $5,000 off.
Yes,
of my $10,000.
Exactly.
Okay.
And the other way around, let's say you got $10,000 in losses and a $5,000 winner, and you sell both of them. The winner will go. The gains go against the loss. You now got a $5,000 loss carry forward. So what that means is you'll be able to use $3,000 a year on the tax return. The other $2,000 will carry to the next year. So it doesn't just vanish. You get to use it forever. And basically, as long as you're alive, you or your spouse, if you're filing jointly, are alive, you both get to use that carry forward. So you can't pass it down to anybody. But again, the trick on this is a little hidden thing called the wash sale rule. Wash sale rule basically says that in a taxable account, if you sell a loser, doesn't matter if it's a winner because you're going to pay capital gains on it. But if you sell a loser, and let's say then you read a report, 2 weeks later you sell your Netflix at a loss. 2 weeks later you go, oh, I need that stock back. You repurchase it within 31 days. You revert back to your original basis. So the concept is make sure that you're not, it's basically that you're not walking back down that same path, buying the same or a similar stock to what you sold. Otherwise, wash sale rule kicks in the gear.
Yeah.
Now, if you did this in your IRA or your 401k, doesn't matter because it's not, even at a loss, it does not matter within an IRA or 401k. It's only your taxable brokerage accounts, trust accounts, stuff like that.
Okay. And inside those taxable brokerage accounts, you were telling me that there's a mutual fund bomb hanging out there.
So here's the bomb. If the market just runs flat the rest of the year, the problem is the mutual funds had heavy redemptions in the first part of the year. they sold a lot of their stock that the mutual funds actually own within the mutual funds. And at the end of this year, the mutual fund will not sit on the gains over the last 5 years. They're going to distribute that to every shareholder proportionately at the end of this year. So you may have a terrible year in the market. Let's say you don't sell. You have a terrible year in the market, and you look at your one mutual fund and you're down 22%. You're like, man, what happened? Should have sold it. And at the end of the year, it's going to distribute a capital gain to you that you pay tax on. So again,
if I have a brokerage account, I've got mutual funds in there.
Mm-hmm.
If they were one of these that sold a bunch of stuff, they're going to send me a check?
They're not going to send you a check. They're going to do a distribution. So it's just going to be reinvested back in.
Okay, it's going to be reinvested.
Yeah, I mean, you have the option to do
cash out
or reinvest, but the bulk of people reinvest.
And I'm sure they're going to send us a note that says that.
Somewhere right before Christmas, they say, hey, here's the projections for the year. And they give you, 20 cents a share, 50 cents a share, whatever the numbers may be.
So my holdings will increase.
Hypothetically.
But the tax man will come in and say, you made money.
Exactly. So let's say that it kicks off a $5,000 capital gain to you. That $5,000 capital gain, and here's where the gain or loss comes into play. If you sold stock earlier in the year and you took losses, again, that capital gain distribution is offset by the losses. But if you didn't do anything, the gain comes across and you pay tax on the full capital gain.
Okay. So I think the moral of the story
be prepared if you're sitting on mutual funds. They're going to
look at your portfolio and see what you have. And if you are inside some mutual funds, maybe you want to call Jeff and say,
exactly,
what's my my tax liability on this?
And what are our options going forward? Not necessarily that you definitely don't want to, in this market, panic sell, by no means. If you open a statement and look at it, it will scare you. I mean, it will honestly, it'll make
I get
you sit
scared
down.
every day. I open up my app on my phone.
Yeah, it'll make you sit down.
Yeah, we're not supposed to really do that. I don't plan on cashing out for another 30 years.
Exactly. So, like in
I said 20 years last week, and you said, "Oh, Josh, I've seen your numbers. You need a full 30."
Maybe it's 35 after this last week, but that's okay. Yeah. But again, don't panic sell. That's the worst thing you could possibly do. If you really do start digging into your portfolio, do not panic sell.
But I have mutual funds inside my IRA, my retirement account. I don't have to worry about this.
Other than looking at that mutual fund to the big picture of the entire world and say, does it still fit my risk tolerance?
Right. I look at my portfolio, but this mutual fund tax bomb that you're talking about
is only in taxable accounts.
Only for taxable accounts. Those are your brokerage accounts. Yeah. Those are the ones.
So in your IRA, it may do a capital gain distribution, but you could care less because it's just adding to the kitty. I mean, that's a plus to you.
Yeah.
But in your taxable brokerage accounts, that there's a 1099 created. The 1099 will kick off, and you will pay tax on that.
So reiterate this. Contributing to my IRA, contributing to my Roth, I've got a couple things going on inside my retirement account. That can only be made through a paycheck.
So your 401k that you have, employer-sponsored 401k, is basically only through payroll deduction. So each time you get paid, you get to allocate money towards it.
Gotcha. I can't take I got a windfall of $10,000. I can't take that and put it directly into that 401k.
Cannot. So most people will go, ooh, I underfunded my 401k in September, October. Some employers will allow you to up the ante in a sense, or
for the next 2 or 3 months.
For the next 2 or 3 months to max it out.
But
or maybe there's bonuses that are paid to you or something, and you could work that out.
But here's the issue. If I've maxed out my 401k, which I haven't, or I have a bunch of dollars from, an inheritance or, Christmas, mom and dad were generous. They want to see us enjoy the money. I can't put it in that 401k. No. I have to create something different.
You could create an IRA. And again, there's a whole set of rules as to who can and who can't do this, whether you get the deductibility. Everybody can do an IRA. The question comes down to, is it deductible or not deductible? Or is it partial, where you get maybe half of it you get to take, so you put $6,000 in, maybe 3 is deduction, which reduces your taxable income. The other 3 is non-deductible. It does nothing to your return. So that's the other side of the equation. If you've maxed out your 401ks, Another avenue to run down is what's referenced in the IRS. I shouldn't say that. Congress and the Senate have brought this up multiple times, and it's never passed, to defeat what's called a backdoor Roth, which means if you've already maxed out your 401ks, you can't do anything pre-tax, you literally could take money and put it into a non-deductible IRA and literally convert it to a Roth 2 days later.
Yeah.
There's not a taxable event because you put $6,000 in and you converted $6,000.
Did they now? Some buddies were talking to me about backdoor Roths, and I thought that they had put the kibosh on that.
They tried, but
They
it never
tried.
passed.
It never passed.
That's buried in Build Back Better.
Oh,
So
okay.
it
So
never
I'm telling them, oh no, they canceled that. Well, no,
Still out there.
they never passed that bill, so it's still hanging
still
out there.
there.
So all the talk that we did about that, just throw it out the window. Maybe it'll circle back around
It
again.
did very well. It's a hot topic because they're saying that the wealthy use it to their advantage. So it's a true hot topic. Whether it's Democrat or Republicans are both coming after it. They've come after it multiple times. It just whatever was tied to that package at the same time couldn't get through.
Unless they come up with Build Back Better 2.0 or just decide
or
to do this
3.0,
on its own.
Yeah.
You know, the whole package didn't pass, so they started trying to pass little.
They Build
Chop
Back
it
Better
up.
up in little pieces, and they've, like the Ukraine bill, slid a bunch of stuff through.
But that backdoor Roth, it's still
there.
Still there.
Yep.
Okay. I'll call those guys up and tell them all about it.
That's right.
And then one other thing, like I was saying, you know, maybe I got a windfall from death in the family, or maybe Grandma and Grandpa were very generous and want to see me spend the money in my inheritance.
Buying Maseratis.
Yeah, just get it. I want to take $10,000 and I want to put it somewhere that has a good rate of return, but it's very safe. We were talking about I-bonds
Yes.
a couple of weeks ago, and guess what? I'm watching Good Morning America this week, and guess what the lady on there said was a great idea.
Yes.
For an investment strategy, I-bonds.
Yes. So you're limited to $10,000 per person per year. The only way you can do I think it's
married filing jointly.
Yes.
10,000 for me.
Yep. 10,000 for your wife.
Okay.
20,000 total. If you're single, you get 10. I believe it's 8.62, but the quarterly that is calculated by the Treasury Department. And so inflation is here for a while. Unfortunately, the odds are inflation will step up more as we go throughout the rest of this year and 2023. So the odds on the I-bonds going up in value is probably pretty good. But here's the thing. You have to hold that I-bond from the day you buy it 12 months later.
So the day I buy it, and last I checked, it was somewhere in 9%
It's
rate of return.
9.62, I believe.
I buy it January 25th or June 25th. I'm locked into that 9%
Exactly.
Rate of return
Until 12 months.
On 12 months and a day, I can sell it.
Yes.
And I get that.
And you're entitled to the interest that it
or
earned.
I can ask for the money back.
Yeah.
I get that 9% on top of that.
But if, say, in March you came along and said, hey, I need my money for whatever reason, you're not going to get anything.
Right.
So that's the big, from a holding period.
I don't get anything.
Nothing. So look at it under 12-month holds.
Yeah. So when we sit down with Jeff Zufall at Capital Advisory Group, and he says, what do you have?
Mm-hmm.
How much do you feel safe and comfortable with having in a cash account that you can go and access? You lay down on your pillow at night and you say, you know what? If the AC goes out, I want to make sure I got $10,000 in the bank.
Exactly.
But what do you do with the rest?
I-bonds would be one of them.
And an I-bond is a good idea. If you don't need it within the next year,
you're good.
Park it in an I-bond. It's making you much more money than it is
exactly
in your checking account.
And the I-bonds could be, to a small degree, an offset to your bond holdings within your portfolio. They're bonds, just a little bit different breed in a sense. So a corporate bond today, a real corporate bond, mutual fund that's a basket of bonds all tossed in there. Different maturity dates, different interest rate payments, and so on. You're probably down about 15% for the year. And that's a bond. That's supposed to be safe and secure, and everything's great. But everything got hit straight across the board when they started raising rates. The I-bonds, basically, you can't put them in a brokerage account. Again, that's direct with the federal government.
I don't call you and say, Jeff, put my money in I-bonds. No. I've got to put this in directly. I have to work with the federal government.
Yeah. basically go online, open an account, move money.
Look, that's fine.
It's easy.
Yeah.
I mean, it's an easy process.
That's fine.
They hold the bonds, so the good old days of them sending, if people remember the EE bonds that you got on your birthdays and Christmas and stuff like that, they don't send those anymore. They're all held by the Treasury Department online. And if you need your money, you just go online and redeem it and have the money sent to you.
So that's the thing. It's you're capped at $10,000 a person, so that rich people can't just dump $100,000 in there.
Dump a lot more than 100 at a 9.62.
Yeah, I mean that's a pretty good rate of return.
It's a good rate of return,
and it's a very safe. If you don't need it within a year, it's
so
pretty
the joke
safe
is it's backed by the full faith and credit of the U.S. government. Now a lot of people laugh at that. Other people would go, ooh.
Right. Well, I would, for at least a year, I think I might try it out.
Oh, yeah.
And see what
and
happens.
again, inflation is because these are inflation-protected bonds. So literally they are tied to the inflation rate. That's why they're so high.
Why the percentage is so high right now is because inflation is up so much.
4 years ago, they were your every day you get 3-4%.
Yeah.
You like
nothing
Oriental
special.
Bond. You're like, nothing spectacular. But you had to deal with the feds because you had to open the account. You had to send the money. You had to redeem them. But at 9.6, that's not shabby.
Look, let's just say I put $10,000 in there, and a year and a day later I take it out. I got
$960.
$960 get paid to me, and then when it comes tax time,
that's interest income. You pay tax on it.
So I pay tax, capital gains tax. I pay
just interest
regular.
income. Yeah,
and I've told the people I'm not too shy to say this. We were at a 24% tax rate. So $960 minus 24%.
$230 for.
I'm walking away with $700.
It's in your pocket
after taxes.
Yep.
All right. Not a bad idea.
Not at all. And that's your bond alternative. Now, the planning technique for this is down the road. And I don't know when this may be. 2 years, 5 years, 8 years. When inflation starts to back down, you've got a crossover point, which means the interest rate that they're paying, that 9.6 that they're paying today, if inflation gets under control, and that's kind of may take a long time for it to happen. When that rate comes back down, there's a crossover point where the market then offsets. And I say the market as a bond or maybe an ultra short bond or something of that effect pays a better rate. That's when you would sell out and move back.
Right.
So
next year at this time, I've done my full year. I got my $960 after taxes. It's somewhere around $700 in my pocket. I can choose to reinvest.
Just leave it there.
Or leave it there.
Let it roll forward for another year.
What a year from now? What's the rate at? I don't know.
Exactly. We don't know, but I don't think with a 8.6% inflation factor, each month it creeps up by a quarter point. The Fed is very, very, very aggressive right now in raising rates. They were, I actually probably they spoke a little too aggressive. They've toned it down just a touch. But each quarter that they meet, they're going to, or by monthly times that they meet, they will probably raise rates 4 to 5 more times in 2022, which means that could go over 10% because it's tied to the inflation factor.
Wow. Try to get 10% somewhere on the open market.
It doesn't exist.
That doesn't have any risk.
It's got a lot of risk associated with it. Hypothetically, the more risk you assume, the greater that rate of return. But they really don't go hand in hand all the time.
Yep.
So you could assume risk and just get hammered. So
again, look it up. Go out and look it up. Jeff can't buy it for you. You got to buy it from the federal government.
Exactly. But it's your bond alternative right now.
And it's only like this because of inflation. So if you're wondering, well, how come I haven't heard of this before? Because inflation has never been this way.
In 40 years, it's never been this high.
So check that out, iBonds. We're going to go to commercial break. When we come back, we're going to talk to business owners directly and tell them some things that they might want to keep in their back pocket going forward. But I want to mention this. If you are a business owner, myerctoday.com. myerctoday.com, the Employee Retention Credit. Did you retain employees through the pandemic?
Yes, through 2020 and 2021.
If you did, the government wants to reward you.
Yes.
And give you, I said a kickback, and you said there's a better term.
That's a better term.
There's a better term for it. They want to reward you with a credit.
Yes.
Just to say thank you for not firing your employees and putting them on the unemployment rolls where the government would have to pay for them.
Yeah.
So business employers who kept employees throughout the pandemic, go on to myerctoday.com, get your information. They'll ask you for certain forms.
Oh, yeah.
But as a business owner, you have them.
You have them, 940s, 941s, payroll report, so on and so forth, just to see what's out there. And again, I'll say it's not like, limited time only, do it today. There is a limit on this. I mean, they've allocated, I don't know how many billions of dollars from the federal government.
Once the money runs out,
it's gone. It's gone. So it's not a loan. It's not the EDIL. It's not a PPP loan. This is basically off by itself. It's like the third leg of the COVID scenario. You had PPP came out, EDIL came out, and now you have this.
And basically, again, it's just a credit, employee retention credit for keeping people off unemployment. Yes. Thanks for keeping people working.
Employed, exactly.
Throughout the pandemic, you've helped us, we'll help you.
Exactly.
And just, the federal government will help you.
Yeah.
Normally when you hear that, you run.
Yep.
But in this case, run to your computer. Yes, go to myerctoday.com. If you're a business owner, plug in your information and see what's out there for you.
Yes. 8 worst words in the dictionary. I'm from the government. I'm here to help.
But in this case, go out there, check and see. It's a fund that's sitting out there. When the money runs out,
money runs out. It runs out.
But you kept employees on payroll. Yeah. So you deserve this just as much as anybody else. We're going to go to a commercial break, and when we come back, we'll talk a little bit more to some business owners. And the mileage deduction has gone up a little bit. Inflation
strikes again.
Will permeate every single topic that we talk about for the next, I don't know.
Well, for a while, unfortunately.
We'll just say that. It is Keep What's Yours with Jeff Zufall. If you have any questions about anything and you say, well, I want to do this myerctoday.com thing, Jeff, can you walk me through it? Sure.
Yes.
636. Yes, 394-5524 if you're a business owner and you need help and you say, look, I'm bleeding money every month.
Yes.
I want to maximize my profits, this and that. That's one of your specialties.
Yes, it is.
You guys will look at the numbers and just say you're bleeding money here. You can make a little bit more money over here. You can keep more of what's yours.
Yes.
That's the name of the show. That's what we do every weekend. Keep What's Yours with Jeff Zufall, Capital Advisory Group, 636-394-5524.
This is Keep What's Yours with Josh Gilbert and Jeff Zufall.
Welcome back to Keep What's Yours with Jeff Zufall. I'm Josh Gilbert. We're talking taxes on a beautiful weekend, and we're talking ways to keep some more of your money.
Yes.
And the idea is that the federal government wants you to pay your fair share. But if we don't do anything, if we, let things slide, I'll just fill this form out. And
I'll worry about it later.
I'll worry about it later. I'll let the government just tell me how much I owe them. Then you're probably going to be paying more than
what you should.
More than what you should. And the government writes the tax code. The IRS enforces it. There are things written inside the tax code specifically to benefit us.
Yes. That you just have to follow. That's it.
And if we don't take advantage of it, then we're paying more taxes than what we should.
Exactly. Yeah.
And the idea, how do we access these parts of the tax code? Well, number one, you can read the tax code and try to interpret it yourself. Or you can have somebody on your side, Jeff Zufall, Senior Tax Strategist and Wealth Advisor with Capital Advisory Group, 636-394-5524, to interpret the tax code for you.
And guide you through it.
Implement it based on your situation. I hate to say snowflake has a terrible connotation.
It does.
These days.
It does, but that's what it is.
The political people have jumped on it, but my tax situation is a snowflake.
Yes, different from everybody else.
It's different from everybody else, so maybe I could use certain parts of the tax code that other people can't, and vice versa.
Yeah.
Maybe a small business owner can utilize a part of a tax code that I'm not allowed.
There's a lot of advantages to be a small business owner, honestly, because there's a ton of tax, laws that are put in play for a small business owner. Direct.
Yeah, and a lot of people who are running small businesses are probably really, I've said this before. You run a flower shop, okay?
Yeah.
You know how to grow beautiful lilies, but you know nothing about keeping books.
Yeah, the taxation side of it. How do you do, your inventories and your ledgers and how to file a 940, 941. There's a ton of stuff out there that you go, ooh, I don't know how to do it.
You want to open up a flower shop, and because you know everything about flowers and you think it's a good idea, but then you've got rent and you've got taxes and you've got payroll and you've got all of this stuff.
Yeah,
it's not for you to do. It's a different bone.
One of the other concepts is there's stuff every day that has to take place, and the concept is for you to focus on your business, have someone else do the stuff.
Yeah.
It's that easy.
And Jeff can do that stuff for you. You can open up a very successful floral shop and just have Jeff doing the stuff on the back end. And that's frankly, that's the stuff we didn't want to do anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's why you exist. 636-394-5524. We mentioned the myerctoday.com. If you're a business owner and you kept employees throughout the pandemic, the government wants to give you a credit.
Yes.
Employee retention credit. Go to myerctoday.com, fill out your information, and see what's out there for you.
There's a ton.
And it's probably based on how many employees you kept.
Yeah, how many employees, how much you paid them. And there are some, I think it cut off in September of 2021, and it started in March of 20. Because that's really when COVID hit, was March of 20, when the world came to a screeching halt.
When everybody decided that they could be an investment guru.
Yeah, and sit at home
and buy a bunch of Tesla stock. Business owners. The IRS has increased the mileage deduction. These are people driving around in their cars, taking tax deductions for mileage.
So if you don't write off your vehicle 100%, but you use it for business purposes. So the example is everybody's got to supply their own way to and from the office every day, hypothetically. But if you're working from home and you say, hey, like today I got to drive out to KTRS to do the show, and then I got to go see somebody on my way back, and then I'm going back to the office. So under that setup is when I leave the office to KTRS to the client's house, back to the office, I get to deduct that.
And I bet a lot of sales guys out there.
Tons of sales guys that use their own vehicle.
That pound the pavement, drive all over town.
To do this. Now, this is where the accurate books and records come into play. A lot of people we see go, I think I drove about 1,000 miles. It's not I think. It's you either did or you didn't.
Yeah.
And you need accurate records because the IRS says that this should be in ledger format. So that if they said, hey, who'd you see on this day?
You can't just do like a line item. I drove 10,000 miles.
Yeah, you can't do that.
You say, well, prove it.
So it's going to get even more trickier for this year. And we had to, I guess that was 2008 or 9, I think they did this also, where it's split midway through the year. So the old rate applies for 2022 from January 1 to June 30th. The new rate applies from July 1 to December 31st. So the increase, you have to keep 2 sets for 6 months of the year and the second 6 months of the year.
So for the first 6 months, I'm keeping a ledger at, X.
58.5 cents is what
58.5 cents. And then for the next 6 months, I'm keeping a record of where I went while on business.
It's 62.5
to write up 62.5 cents.
Yeah.
And you have to keep accurate records.
Accurate records, because if you get called out by the IRS and you are a small business owner or self-employed and you do the mileage deduction, the first thing they're going to say is, prove it.
Prove it. And there are apps out there. There are computer programs that will do this for you.
We use we've had good luck with it. MileIQ. MileIQ runs on your cell phone. You set it up. You press a button. You're off to the races. It takes care of it from there. It literally will track everywhere you go. And at the end of the day, you left swipe for personal use, you right swipe for business use. And it's somewhat, I say, intuitive. It knows places. It knows KTRS.
Knows where you live.
It knows what home is. It knows where KTS is. It knows where your office is. And literally, it will start to put all this stuff together for you as you go forward.
And the idea here with Keep What's Yours, it was the book that you wrote. It's the show that we do every weekend. If you keeping a ledger of my travel is for 58 cents a mile, it's not worth it to me. Well, you're leaving money on the table.
You're leaving a ton on the table. Even if you only drive every so often.
So
it's worth taking that deduction.
You could be keeping more of your money.
Yes.
It's built into the tax code. It's there for the taking.
Yes,
if you don't take it, then you're paying more in taxes than what you should.
Because it amounts to a lot more than what you think it does on an annual basis.
Just try it for the next 6 months.
Yeah. You'll be amazed.
And you'll be amazed.
But you got to keep accurate records on where you're going, who you're going to see, what the mileage is. Most people go, oh, well, I drive from here to there, and it's 7 miles one way. Okay. But that's you need with days, times, so on and so forth.
Right.
But again, the IRS just wants a ledger. They used to have in the good old days, they had the prior to the apps on your phone, they had a mileage log, which is a book and a pen that you kept in your car at all times.
Oh, yeah.
Every time you got in, you wrote down the date, the odometer reading, and who you were going to see. And when you were done, you did the same thing. Odometer reading and where
we
you
have
were
that
going.
in the station vehicle.
Oh, yeah.
We're doing it the old-fashioned way. But so many different people drive it.
Exactly. You can't have one app for
20
everyone. People jumping in it and taking
Yeah.
off. But again, at the end of the day, KTRS gets called out to say, hey, yes, this is 100% business use. They still want a mileage log for it, though.
Yeah.
But a lot of people blow that off like, I'm just going to take the deduction. You can't.
Well, and when you give the IRS a ledger, and, maybe you use one of these apps or whatever, will the IRS look at that and say, okay, well, it looks like you kept good records?
Yes.
And then just not really, if somebody came to me and said, these are my records, I'm not going to line item and go, no.
They may spot check.
I'll give you the benefit of the doubt. This looks pretty legit.
Yeah.
And they may spot check, like you
They'll
said.
spot check, do the math real quick to make sure you go, oh, okay, it adds up to, 12 miles like you said it did. Then they'll leave you alone. But if you show up and go, I don't know.
Yeah. I drove 20,000 miles this year.
Yeah, that's what I did. I drove that.
You have to prove it.
You
Get
have
an
to
app.
have records.
The app will make your life so much simpler. And you're going to get paid a little bit more for the next 6 months.
Exactly. It's just, it has to be 2 sets of numbers. First 6 months, second 6 months. And I think Mile IQ and different stuff like that, I haven't seen anything that they're doing, but they will keep tabs on it. And at the end of the year, you can print a report and it says, hey, you drove this many miles. X was personal use, X was business use. Boom, it's that easy.
Another example of things that are written into the tax code that we are just supposed to know how to do on our own.
Yeah, and go, oh, yeah, hey.
But they're out there, and they benefit us, and they were written in there to benefit us.
Exactly.
You had mentioned business lunches.
So for this year, 2022 is the ending, if you want to call it, not ending, but the last year of 100% meal deduction. So basically in the past, you got 50%. And again, going to McDonald's doesn't constitute the actual meal. Has to be a place that you go that it is prepared for you on site.
Has to be a business lunch.
Has to be a bona fide business lunch. And it cannot be excessive. So you can't go buy, $2,000 bottles of wine and say, hey, look what we're doing, and
we're
it's
writing this
you
off.
and your wife. Yeah. But what you do need to understand is, let's say, and the example would be, let's say you and I go to the baseball game, and I buy a box because we don't want to sit in the cheap seats.
Yeah, I don't want to sit in the sun.
Yeah, so we buy a box, and then we have food and drink there, and everything's great time. At the end of the year, on my tax return, I cannot write off that box because that's client entertainment. But I can write off everything we drank and ate that night.
The food and drink.
And drink, and
all
I
right.
get 100% of it.
Yeah.
So that's where a lot of people, like if you bought baseball tickets, and it might be extreme, but if you bought baseball tickets for a client and then you went and had a couple of beers, hot dogs, and you talked business, so it's got to be a bona fide business meeting. You could write off the food and the hot dogs and all that fun stuff, but you cannot write off the tickets that you purchased.
Well, let me know when this all-you-can-eat and drink baseball game is, and I will come and crash it. We can talk business.
Oh, yeah.
Speaking about driving around, while I have you, the Biden administration gas tax holiday for 3 months.
Yes, we'll see what happens here, but
the federal gas tax is what?
18. I think it's 18.5 cents, and so that's on vehicles are gas you put in your car.
Yeah.
The biggest thing that's out there is the diesel, which is 22.5 cents, 24.5 cents. 24.4 cents. So that's where the truckers are feeling this 100 times more than us. But they're going to back down 24.4 cents on diesel fuel and 18.4 cents on gas.
But these are taxes that go to fund infrastructure.
Exactly. So
these aren't just,
that's the question of the day. And it's a 3-month reprieve.
If you took that money away...
What goes in that kitty to help roads? And half the roads we drive on today are a joke.
Right.
And then whether that's federal or not, 70
and I
70
saw,
across Missouri is one thing, 70 across Kansas is another.
So I saw that if you broke this down, if you drive a minivan, 18.5 cents per gallon federal tax. You fill up once a week, you're saving $3 a week.
Exactly. So there's, I'll say, old political leaders. We won't name any names, who literally came out and said it's a joke. It looks good. It's a good PR move, but it really doesn't do anything.
Number one, it takes money out of the infrastructure,
yes,
and number two,
that's the issue.
I'm not really saving that much.
No,
everything counts these days, Jeff.
Exactly.
But when I break it down to $3 a week,
yeah.
I think I would rather be responsible
and have that paid into that system so that
we could fix our roads. Right. Yeah. And I heard someone, a Democratic politician, say it's easy to take a tax away. Yeah. It's a lot harder to put it back in.
Exactly.
So, messing with this
could be, fuel prices are insane. And again,
but they're not at the place they're not $5 a gallon because of the federal gas tax.
Yeah, no, by no means.
That's other stuff.
Yeah,
we won't even touch that.
We won't go there. That's about a week's worth of shows. So
right. In the state of Missouri, we have some of the lowest gas taxes.
Yes. And they just started raising them, a year and a half ago?
Yeah, 19.5. Or I think we're still 4th or 7th on the list of lowest.
And again, so there's the other, this will really confuse people. This is the federal gas tax holiday. Then there is the state gas tax rebate, where you keep tabs on every time that you fill your car up, and I believe it's 2.5 cents a gallon, because that's what this year's increase in the gas tax was. And in September, you turn your little ledger sheet in, and you'll get whatever that 2.5 cents a gallon calculation is.
So we just talked about people, business owners, salespeople, writing their mileage down.
Yes,
so that they can get a deduction. Me as a citizen of the great state of Missouri, in my private life, I'm filling up my own car. I'm driving to wherever I want. You can create a ledger.
Yeah, I think it's a 2.5 cent a gallon credit for the increase in the gas tax. But we've done it, the calcs for many of people, knowing what they drive on average on a personal, not a business, but a personal use. The mathematics don't come out. It's not. It's $14-15 in a year.
Yeah.
So it's a spreadsheet that has to be, you have to keep the receipt.
What's it worth to you?
Yeah. You have to write your odometer reading down, the VIN number. You have to fill this whole form out.
If 18-cent federal gas holiday only means $3 a week to me,
that's
it's
the same for the state.
What's 2 cents?
2 cents. Now, if you
really
drive a lot, or if you live way out, you're driving in to St. Louis, or wherever you're going. If you're driving a lot, you might get $75, $100 at the end of the year. It might be worth it to you.
Yeah.
But the average person that we played with wasn't even worth trying to keep the ledgers and go through the steps that they want. It'd be different if it was all digital online somehow, but it's not. It's kind of a manual spreadsheet, if you want to call it that. So.
Again, it's written in there to help us, but that might be one that's a
little too much to
not worth the while.
Yeah.
Let's go to commercial break, and when we come back, I want to remind everybody before we go, myerctoday.com. Employee retention credit. The federal government's got a kitty out there, big pool of money.
Oh, yeah.
They want to give a credit to any employers
who kept people on.
Kept people on the payroll throughout the pandemic. It starts in March of 20, goes through September of 21. Did you have employees on the payroll? Were you able to keep them and keep them off of unemployment?
Unemployment is the concept.
The government wants to give you a little bit of money. So go out to My ERC Today, enter your information, myerctoday.com, put your information in and see what's out there from the federal government. Coming back to you. It is Keep What's Yours with Jeff Zufall. We'll go to commercial break, come back, wrap up this show in just a moment.
This is Keep What's Yours with Josh Gilbert and Jeff Zufall.
Back to Keep What's Yours with Jeff Zufall. I'm Josh Gilbert. Not a lot of time left, Jeff, but here's something that we can remind everybody about. If you're a small business owner, or if you're a contractor, or if you're somebody that pays quarterly
taxes, or you owe tax, even if you're an individual and you owed tax last year, you should be making estimated payments going forward. Our June 15th was the second one for the year. We just passed that 2 weeks ago, basically. There's still time to make it. The next one, it goes calendar quarter. So it'd be September 15th and January 15th. So if you owed tax last year and you owed more than $1,000 to the IRS, the concept is prepay your taxes as you go forward. They will not hit you for underpayment penalties or failure to file proper estimated payments, so on and so forth. So
just a friendly reminder, estimated payments are due. One more time, myerctoday.com. If you're a small business owner, if you're a business owner and you kept employees throughout the pandemic, myerctoday.com. Go out there, put your info in, see what's owed to you, see what kind of credit the government is wanting to give you for keeping people off the unemployment rolls, and look at your portfolio. Yeah, we are 6 months into the year.
Yep, we're right there.
So it's time. You should be taking stock quarterly, frankly.
But at least worst case, if you haven't, we're halfway through the year. Look to see where you're at.
Find out where you're at and give Jeff a call, 636-394-5524. Jeff Zufall, Capital Advisory Group, Senior Tax Strategist and Wealth Advisor, 636-394-5524. If you need some help, you need some assistance, you're a small business that wants Jeff to look over the books, he can help you, 636-394-5524. See you, Jeff.
See you.
You've been listening to Keep What's Yours with Josh Gilbert and Jeff Zufall, Senior Tax Strategist and Wealth Manager at Capital Advisory Group. To learn more, call 636-394-5524 or visit CapitalAdvisoryGRP.com.